RTF Sports Talk. RTF Sports Talk. RTF Sports Talk. RTF Sports Talk.
And now you've got yourself something funky.
RTF Sports Talk. RTF Sports Talk. RTF Sports Talk. RTF Sports Talk. RTF.
And welcome to RTF Sports Talk. I'm the host of the show, Michael Buckheister. I'm joined today with Matthew Lyle. Matthew, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Just starting to feel a little bit like fall here in the state of Kentucky. So, really means football's here.
Oh, it's beautiful outside. And Billy Hatton, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Doing even better from this morning, man. Got a call from my mom down there in Florida. Everything is copacetic. Everything is good to go. So let's roll.
Yeah, Michael definitely did hit with force there. I forgot you guys were living down there, but I'm glad everything is good. And let's get on it today, guys.
Why am I not surprised that even outside of the show that something named Michael is giving Billy heartache?
Story of my life, man. I've spread my wings everywhere. But anyways, let's get into the topic of today's show. Michigan versus Wisconsin. Number 4, Wisconsin travels to the Big House versus 5-1 Michigan. Billy, we'll start with you today. Who do you got and why?
I got Michigan winning. I think Harbaugh has gotten these guys to believe in. Shea Patterson is he's coming along pretty good in that offense. I think he, about 1,200 yards or so. He's winning the turnover battle as far as interception touchdown ratio go. And I like that defense. I think Wisconsin has had these years where, as of late, Wisconsin has been really, really good. But it seems like in big games, they seem to falter a little bit. I think this will be the team, Michigan, that will match them. Both teams are good in defense. Both of them are allowing under 15. Michigan is at 15.8. Wisconsin's at 16.4, basically 16 points a game. But I think, the running game is going to also help Shea Patterson out. I got Michigan winning this by a very, very slight margin, maybe 3 points, late field goal to seal the deal.
Quick slight correction, maybe an oversight or whatever. Wisconsin's 15. I don't know if they said they were forwards. The number 15 in the country, especially after being embarrassed by BYU. However, this is a close game, and I'm going to go opposite of Billy on this one because, I think that's better for my chances. When me and Billy pick the same, it usually ends up bad for all of us. This is a big game for Michigan. They're about to go into a very tough schedule. They've already got one loss. They can't afford 2 if they want to be considered elite, which is what Jim Harbaugh was hired to do. I'm going to steal from James Franklin's little Penn State rant. We're great now, but great's not good enough. We need to be elite. And that's what Michigan fans want from Jim Harbaugh. And this game is a must. Wisconsin, I think, is a solid team. They just had a really bad outing versus a not that good BYU team. The reason I think Wisconsin is going to pull this out, I do think it's going to be a very close game, but in the Big Ten, anybody can beat anybody at any time. It just seems like this always comes it's going this time, unless you're Ohio State, and they seem to be like stumbled by a bad team and then beat all the good ones. I think it's going to come down to a close game, and especially in Big Ten, depending on what the weather's like, especially when you get into Big Ten type weather, I always give the edge to whoever does what they do best. And I think Michigan can get a little flashy sometimes. They try to use that speed, which can really pay off when it's going well. But when it's not, it's tough to go. Wisconsin's a ground-on-top team, and I think in a late game, a close game, Wisconsin does what they do better than what Michigan does what they do. So I'm going to give if the spread was 2.5, I don't know if I could give it, but I'm going to go Wisconsin by 3.
Just a quick point on that, Matthew. I think you do have a really good point. We know what Wisconsin is going to come out and do. We know what they want to come out and do. They want to come out and they put them 600,000-pound offensive linemen that they got. That I don't know what they feeding them boys up there, and they're going to want to push you over, and that's what Wisconsin do best. I do agree. They know their idea and they stick with it, and sometimes Michigan could falter. In this game, I just went with, which I didn't mention it, I went Harbaugh over whoever else, in this instance. And I think Harbaugh would be the difference in this game. But I agree. I agree with the point. When they get down to the nitty gritty, we know what Wisconsin is going to do. They're gonna smash mouth football, and they're gonna play pretty good defense. So I agree with you there. I just think Harbaugh would be the difference.
Alrighty, guys. So moving on. Moving on here, we definitely know that they're not eating my wife's food up there in Wisconsin because let's be honest, it's not the greatest. But
don't let her listen.
Moving on,
Mike gonna be grounded. Mike gonna be grounded by Sunday. Telling you, oh my God.
Moving on here, we got Georgia 6-0 versus 5-1 LSU. It's a 3:30 kickoff Eastern time in LSU Stadium. So, Matthew, who do you got on this one?
Well, I'm excited for this game. I love when CBS does SEC football games. That 3:30 kickoff is always like, it tells me it's almost time to start the grill up, and it just tells me I'm about to get 9 times out of 10 a really good game. And I think this one's going to be a good game. You get your battle of quarterbacks. You get Jake Fromm versus Gail Bureau, however you pronounce it. It's going to be good offenses. I think LSU coming off the loss, they were living on some borrowed time with a nice win against Auburn. They came off a loss against Florida. I think they try to rebound. I got some concerns with Georgia. They've lost a lot with Chubb and Sonny Michel in that run game. They got some decent guys back there with Swift and Holyfield. I just don't know if it's going to be enough against that LSU front four. Now, I do think Georgia is going to pull this off. I think the experience of Fromm making it to the national championship game last year, playing a full SEC season last year as well as a true freshman, I think is really going to be the difference maker here. But, like I said, I'm sticking with Georgia to win. But I'm going to say this now. Kirby Smart, being a disciple of Nick Saban, if Fromm struggles, if Fromm doesn't come out and play the way he should, would not be surprised if they go to the true freshman, All-American, 5-star guy, Justin Fields, the same way he went with Tua, or Saban went with Tua in the national championship game.
I have to agree. I think just right off the bat, I think Georgia wins. And I got Georgia winning by at least 10. I don't really believe in this LSU team, and I really haven't believed in this LSU team really all year. They do have an upgrade at quarterback. I'll give you that. And Burrow, that front four, we know what LSU can do. We know the type of talent that they produce year in and year out. Throughout that defense. But Georgia, to me, is the second best team in the country behind Alabama. I just don't see them losing to LSU. Fromm is doing good. 1,200 yards on the year. 12 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. You mentioned Holyfield and Swift. I like them. I like Hartman out wide at receiver. I just think Georgia. has the better players, and I think it'll show. Is the reason why they're 5-0, 2-0 in the country. The one thing that does concern me with Georgia is they've only played one ranked team so far. And that was South Carolina. And they kind of manhandled them. Maybe South Carolina is not who we thought they were, but that's the one thing that worried me. Outside of the national championship game, playing the big games, they haven't played in any this year. And it's something about being battle tested this year and not living off what you did last year. But that's the only thing that scared me. I think Georgia still pull it out. I think Georgia still get the win in the end because they're better. Yeah, I got Georgia.
I've seen a decent Missouri team, and I've seen South Carolina handle that decent Missouri team. I think South Carolina is not a bad squad. I just don't think South Carolina has the offensive weapons to keep up with Fromm. One thing I do think could be a difference maker for LSU is, A, their ability to get to the quarterback. And they got one of the best corners in the country in Greedy Williams. If he can get the ball, if he can create some turnovers, that could be huge, especially in the Death Valley. I put air quotes around that. I think that could be a difference maker. Like I said, I'm still going with Georgia. I think it's going to be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's, a 13-point game with 2 minutes left. LSU gets a late touchdown, can't get the onside kick, ends up losing by 6. The scorer would say it would look definitely closer than I think the game's going to feel. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And I don't know if there's going to come a point, especially after the first quarter, where you think Georgia's going to lose this.
Matthew,
I agree.
Matthew, let me ask you a question here. Are you kind of pulling for Georgia because you want them to be undefeated coming into UK in a few weeks?
No, I do not, because not to get on a Kentucky tangent because we're not talking about them. I'm looking for what's best and realistic for Kentucky's program moving forward. Kentucky's not a national championship contender, so even them coming in undefeated isn't going to mean much. What I need, and I don't think we can really beat Georgia, what would really help catapult us for our program is making it to the SEC championship game. So I'm actually rooting for LSU this week. And then when Georgia plays Florida, I'm going to root for Georgia to beat Florida. So that's Florida's second loss. And then hopefully we can do something when we play them and when we play Georgia, because they already have one loss against LSU. Florida will be behind because we beat Florida head-to-head. They already got a loss. So, no, I'm actually rooting for LSU because I need them to have a conference loss since we do right now.
Oh.
And speaking to that, I had it written down in my notes. I think can I just ask a question real quick, Mike?
Do it.
Matthew, this is for you because I know you the SEC guy on the show. I put down in my notes, and tell me if you agree with me or not, that this win means more for Georgia than it does LSU. And this is the reason why. Next week they got a bye. As you mentioned, when they come off that bye, they got Florida. They got your Kentucky Wildcats. And then they play Auburn. So they lose this game to LSU going into a bye week. Now you got a whole week of questioning yourself. We ran through everybody to start the season. We just came off a college football playoff berth, national championship berth. 5-0, we lose, and now we got a bye week, and now we got to go see Florida, who's looked much improved. We got a Kentucky team who, to me, is a shocker for them to be where they at right now. And then you got Auburn. That's a tough goal after you lose to LSU, and now you got a whole week to sit on that. What you think for college football?
So I'm a little torn on it. Maybe I'll go push on this. One thing, I don't think it matters too much. I think it's not exactly the same division. Now, if I'm Georgia and I lose to LSU, I'm more confident that I can beat my SEC East opponents. Because if you're Georgia, I would like my chances against Kentucky. If I'm Georgia, Kentucky, and Florida, than I would if I'm LSU versus Bama.
Correct.
So, now LSU's already beat Auburn, so they don't have to worry about one opponent where Georgia has to worry about two. But I think that with LSU already having one loss, and you're pretty much penciling in a second loss, or you're going to count on a miracle to beat that Bama team, you can't afford this. Because even if you trip over Georgia, even if you upset or you compete nicely with Bama, if you tripped over Georgia, it doesn't matter. If Georgia trips up over here, I think they like their chances to run the table.
Agreed.
If I was in those uniforms, that's what I would think. I do think Georgia's the better team, so as being the better team, I don't think they have as much to worry about. But as a Kentucky fan, I'm go G-A-U-X Tigers.
I was just talking in terms of, national title hopes, because if they would lose to LSU, that'll put them at one loss. But then what if they lose 2 out of these next 3 that they would have after that? I don't think a 2-loss SEC team gets into the college football playoffs. So I'm talking in terms of Georgia's college football playoff hopes. I know they would still be good in terms of the the SEC East because I think they're the best team in the SEC East. But just in terms of college football playoff hope, a 2-loss Georgia team, I don't think gets in.
Look, we don't have to agree on. We don't. I mean, I think we agree that it shouldn't be this way, but I think we also agree that it will be this way. I think if you're Georgia and you lose this game, and you even lose to Auburn, but you run through the East and you get to go to the SEC championship game and you beat Bama, I think you're in. I don't agree that you should be, but I think you will be. If you're LSU and you lose to Bama, you're not making it. Like you're just not making it. There's no shot in anywhere to be an SEC champion. There's no way to even pretend to be an SEC champion. So I think if you're Georgia,
so you're saying no UCF?
No, I don't think, especially not for a school like that. You know, and I think if you're Georgia, as long as you can get to Atlanta and beat, I'm not saying they will, but if you could beat Bama in Atlanta on national TV to hold up that SEC's crown, I think that's more meaningful than really the regular season. Once again, should it be that way? That's a different show, different argument, different debate. But I think if you're Georgia and you say, hey, we just need to hold that championship trophy up in Atlanta, so whatever it takes to get there, I think it's more important.
Well,
I agree with that.
Well, since we are going to get into one-loss teams and playoff bursts, I mean, do you guys really think a 2-loss Georgia team with the SEC championship really deserves into the playoffs versus some of these one-loss teams that we're going to talk about here in a minute?
So Billy, let me take this one because we had a very heated debate off record about this, and I'm not getting into my beliefs. I'm getting into the committees and the country's obvious perception. I think this isn't my thoughts. This is when I turn on ESPN. This is when I pull up the rankings. This is when I hear Paul Feinbaum talk. I feel like with the SEC having 8 teams in the top 25, that any team that comes out of that, the committee is going to find a way to send them into the bracket. Whether they're a 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, or 4 seed, they're going to find a way. And I just think when you look at some of these teams' remaining schedule, and like I said, like Mike alluded to, we'll talk about that when we get to our one losses. I think any team that in Atlanta in early December holding that little trophy they hold, the little plaque with all the teams on it, will get a automatic bid to the Final Four.
Ditto. I mean, it's not whether or not you say, Mike, do you think that they deserve it? We all acknowledge they don't deserve it, but going on history, going on record, how things have been in the past, I think history tends to repeat itself, at least that's what they say. In this case, that's true. If you are the SEC champion, we know Alabama is like their invitational. They're going to be in there regardless. They're only going to lose about 1 game a year, and it's going to be one of those games that people are going to make excuses for, and they're going to say, but this team is still the best. And this year, I would most definitely agree. I wouldn't care if Alabama get blown out by 95. They're still the best team in college football, and I'll pick them 100 times out of 100.
I'll tell you, if you don't have to be an SEC hater. If you just like the parody of college football, the worst thing that could happen is Georgia lose a game, or Georgia lose 2 regular season games, beat an undefeated Bama. So Georgia has 2 losses and an SEC title. Bama has 1 loss, but dominated everyone else. And then Georgia and Bama both make the tournament, and Georgia and Bama both make the national championship, and Georgia and Bama give us another great national championship. If you're a college football purist and you're a college football parody guy, you hate that. Because what that just told you is Georgia and Bama, no matter what happens in the first 13 weeks of the season, are going to compete for a national championship. And now you're looking at the BCS again because 2 teams are always going to be SEC, and the other 2 teams are going to be the rest of the country.
And that's what the committee go on. The committee want money. They want to see people watch games. They want the best teams out there. That's every year somebody has been left out.
Bama would have to lose, in my opinion, 4 games, 1 being the SEC championship, to miss the playoffs. Because even when Bama loses a game and doesn't deserve to be there, or maybe they lose 2 games and doesn't deserve to be there, they let them in, and then they bail them out by winning a national title. So
Yep.
they right now they have A1 credit, and it cannot be shaken. It's going to take a big downfall or another team coming up and winning it, and right now I just don't see that.
I agree with everything. That's how the committee sees stuff. It's about what they know, your track record with them. If I put you in this game, i.e. Ohio State, when they won it, if I put you in this game, do not embarrass me. What do? They go out and win the title. The next year, they don't deserve it. They put them in there, and then they get beat. Until you show them that you are not worthy of them sticking their necks out for you, and Alabama has not. I mean, they won it, they lose it, they win it. It's like it's a constant theme. As long as you show them that you're worthy of it, they're going to put you in there every time. 2-loss SEC team like Georgia with an SEC title, I think we'll get in.
And Mike, I know probably next we're going to talk about a Pac-12 school, but there's a reason that you don't ever hear Pac-12 hype, because historically, Pac-12 2010 made it. Auburn beat them. SEC school beat them. 2015, Billy alluded to Ohio State. Oregon got in. Marcus Mariota lost. I think it was the next year. Washington got in. Got demolished. I don't know if the Pac-12 has to start dominating some of these other bowl games before they're going to start getting that reason of doubt and a benefit of the doubt. And I just don't see where that's at right now. And nothing against the Pac-12. They play good football. Stanford, Oregon, Washington, Utah, all really on the upset. Colorado
is 19. Yeah, 19.
But it's going to take. Imagine, Billy, and I'm not going to take this personally because we know it's the case. When you're Kentucky in football, you don't get much benefit of the doubt. No matter what they do, they have to go undefeated even to get that. Imagine a whole conference of that. That's the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is just 12 teams that the committee expects to fail at any moment.
Yep.
All right, guys. And speaking of the Pac-12, we have Oregon versus Washington, arguably the best game of the weekend. It's a 5-1 Washington versus a 4-1 Oregon Duck team, and that kickoff's at 3:30 in the afternoon as well, Eastern Coast time. So that's a 11 a.m. kickoff on the West Coast. So it's a pretty early kickoff for these teams. But Billy, who do you got and why?
I got Oregon winning this game. I like the quarterback. I like Herbert. Over 1,400 yards. He's a big kid. I think he's like 6'5" or 6'6". 15 touchdowns on the season, the 5 interceptions. This game is at Autzen Stadium. That crowd will be rocking. Kind of a rivalry game, and I think Oregon is looking to bounce back from a couple weeks ago when they lost that game to Stanford, which I think that they had pretty good command of the whole game, and then they just let it slip away at the end. So I think that they're ready to show people that, hey, we're here to compete, kind of like what we were just talking about. This is that start right now for the Pac-12. You start dominating teams, maybe the committee puts you in there. And I just don't like what I've seen from Jake Browning so far this year. To be a senior quarterback, this is probably his worst year. And this is supposed to be his best year. He got all the experience coming in. He has not really lived up to the hype of Jake Browning. 9 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. That's pretty poor. So I think Oregon wins at home.
I'm right there with you, Billy, and I think this is what we goes to talk about. If you're the Pac-12, you need Washington to win this because Washington's in the top 10. Oregon is not. If Washington loses this game, they don't have enough credit within to flip. Like, I don't see Oregon being top 7 next week, no matter how big they win. So now you're just beating each other up and getting further from a tournament bid. But with that being said, I do like Justin Herbert better. I think he is. I think he's going to be a great NFL prospect. And I think he's going to be a nice college quarterback this season. I think at home. But once again, I keep going back to this playoff. No one's going to be watching this game. It's not going to. I don't think both teams are going to be that hyped playing an 11:30 kickoff. 3:30, the nation's going to be tuned in to CBS watching that Bulldogs Tigers game, LSU Georgia game. So you got 2 games that only is going to go off the score, really, in the nation's eyes. You talked about Browning. That man must have went to Hogwarts. I feel like he's there for his 7th or 8th season. And it's almost like a child actor, a child star. He came out, he made some great noise 2 or 3 years ago, and then fizzled out. And I think it's going to show. I think Washington's got a pretty decent team. I think they got a nice little defense, but I think Oregon's going to be too much. Billy alluded to the great crowd there in Autzen Stadium. I think Oregon wins, and this may just shatter the Pac-12's hope of getting into the tournament.
Hey, just what you just said on Browning about him being in college so long. That's what I think about Turpin. When Ohio State played TCU, I texted my friend, and I was like, how long are they going to let Turpin stay in school? It seems like he's been in school for at least 6 or 7 years, and I never see him get hurt.
I feel like Browning was there with Locker. And
Most
Locker's
likely.
out the NFL already. So,
Yeah.
like, I mean, obviously it's probably not true, but it just feels like it. And maybe that's what happens when you come in and you're a freshman star. Like, I feel like Brett Hundley at UCLA was there for a really long time. I don't know, but I mean, I just can't put a lot of faith in Washington right now. I think Oregon's going to pull this one off.
I'm with you.
Alrighty, guys. So moving on to the final topic of college football on this Thursday here. We kind of alluded it to a little bit on the second segment here, but I want to ask you guys, what one-loss teams do you see that has the best chance of making the playoff this season, and why? Matthew, we'll go ahead and start with you on this one.
All right, so let me really convolute this by throwing you 3 scenarios, or 3 answers. One, I don't think none. I mean, me and Billy talked about it. There's 6 undefeated teams. 2 are Alabama and Georgia, and that's going to answer each other eventually. So I think one of those are guaranteed in no matter what comes out of it. You got Ohio State, whose only ranked opponent is Michigan. You got Notre Dame, who has no ranked opponent, and their best opponent record-wise is Syracuse at 3-2. And then you have Clemson, who, even though it hasn't looked real great, from my understanding, I don't think they have an unranked team left to play, or at least right now. Their best record opponent is Duke at 4-1, which Duke has a nice little offense, but I don't think it's enough to keep up with Clemson. So I think those 3 alone have a pretty good shot at going undefeated. And then we've already talked about what the SEC could or might bring in. And we're not even talking about potential other one-loss SEC teams. You know, maybe if it's Georgia, Lord forbid, if Bama loses a game, they're in no matter what. So I think realistically, you're not going to see any. You're not going to see any one-loss teams just because, you know, combined, West Virginia plays 2 ranked teams, but I don't really have a lot of faith in them.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question real fast. Let's say Georgia goes undefeated, beats Alabama in the SEC championship game, and
Bama's in no matter what. I think we made that clear. Bama's in. I don't care who goes undefeated.
Okay, so therefore you have Alabama as a one-loss team getting in over, say, a Notre Dame or a Ohio State.
Yes, yes. There's nobody you can mention that I'm going to say no.
Give me Bama.
Because here, and this is what they're going to look at.
Plus 20.
Of the 6 undefeated teams, Bama and Georgia have 7 ranked opponents left, not counting a conference championship game. The other 4 have combined have 3 ranked games left. They're not Bama's in. There's not a team you can give me that I wouldn't take Bama over, undefeated or not. Bama, give Bama 2 losses.
Or that the committee would take over Bama. I mean, they told you that last year. They showed that last year.
But realistically, there's also that chance that Ohio State, Clemson is going to choke up. Notre Dame, I don't trust them either. Could choke up somewhere. I think if we're talking who do I personally have the most faith in, if I had to answer that question, I would go Oklahoma, just because Kyler Murray has crazy potential. That team is really good. They have some opportunities to beat a West Virginia team who is undefeated. They have an opportunity to win the Big 12 championship. If you want to talk teams I don't have faith in, but a one-loss team that could do it, I don't have a lot of faith in it. Like, mind you, but a Michigan team who could, mind you, if they run the table, would beat Penn State, Wisconsin, and Ohio State, who are all ranked in the top 15, 2 ranked in the top 10. They could do it. If I had to pick somebody I had faith in, it'd be Oklahoma. But to be perfectly honest with you, the way college football's worked out, the way these guys are showing, the records that are remaining, I think there's a really good chance you look at 4 undefeated teams. I think it's going to be Bama versus Notre Dame and Ohio State versus Clemson. Bama's going to slaughter Notre Dame. Ohio State and Clemson's going to be a good game, and then Bama and the championship game will probably be pretty decent. But I just have a feeling you're going to have 4 undefeated teams. Now, if Mike wants to ask a question of a one-loss team jumping over those, I might entertain what Oklahoma does, could jump Notre Dame. I might entertain a one-loss Georgia team whose only loss is in the SEC championship. If that game is good, could they jump a Notre Dame team or a Clemson team that looks less than stellar? I think Haskins and Ohio State's going to do just way too much that they're not going to get jumped. But if Clemson keeps hanging around and acting like they want to lose to a Syracuse team like they did a couple weeks ago, they could find themselves being jumped over, undefeated or not. So those are the only 2 programs I see that are going to jump undefeated squads. West Virginia, I don't think they really – I mean, they're going to get a chance to play, but I don't think they have enough credit. Even if they run the table and win the Big 12, I think there's a lot of one-loss teams that can jump them.
I'm right there with you on your earlier point that maybe no one-loss team will get in. But the one-loss team that I think, I'm just looking at the records, is Penn State. You look at their one loss. Their one loss was to Ohio State, an undefeated Ohio State. Then they got a chance to play Michigan. They got a chance to play Wisconsin. An Iowa team right now that's 4-1. That could boost a little bit. And I like Masorley. I like what he can do throwing the ball. I like what he can do even better on the ground. Miles Sanders coming out the backfield. I think he's over 100 yards every game, 6 touchdowns. But they do have a little uphill battle. With those teams I mentioned in front of them, Michigan and Ohio State is sitting in front of them right now in the standings in that East. But I think just hypothetically, a one-loss Penn State could get in. I really don't think it matters. I think Alabama gets in as long as Georgia don't lose between now. They could lose probably, but maybe one game. And if they play Alabama tough in the SEC championship game and lose, I still think a one-loss or 2-loss Georgia would get in as long as one of those losses occurs in the SEC championship game. Outside of that, Clemson, they really, as you mentioned, I really don't really like what I'm seeing right now. I mean, the offense is okay. It's not bad. They're winning games. They will play Florida State, who is a much improved team. Now, we're nowhere near where we need to be at all. Don't get that taken out of context, but we are playing better football. That could be a potential trap game with Florida State, maybe needing that game to become bowl eligible and keep the longest bowl winning streak alive. Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame is pretty good since they made that change to Ian Book. He's a more natural thrower. Brian Kelly offense has really taken over. But I think it just all comes down to Alabama, man. Alabama is going to be your champion this year.
See, I just think at this point in the season, the committee or the people around the media have their mind set in stone. And when you say Penn State, I think everybody says Penn State had one job, beat Ohio State. They didn't do it. And I don't think there's anything in there that's going to erase that memory of blowing that lead and that questionable 4th down play call after taking 2 timeouts. You mentioned Clemson. If Clemson, in my opinion, even though Florida State, yes, I will agree after watching them come back and beat Louisville, come back and almost beat Miami, I think they are a much improved team. But I think the committee already looks and says if Clemson loses anywhere, there's not enough wins on their schedule to make us forget about that. Even in the ACC championship game, the ACC has just kind of been jumbled that there's nobody they could beat by any amount of points that would change their mind off of a loss, because that loss is probably going to. I mean, who could it come? If it came against Louisville, they're not going. The committee's not going to forgive that. If it comes against Duke, they're not going to forgive that. If it comes against FSU, that could become forgivable, but there's no games of redemption to overgive it. Like if they lost to FSU, but then could beat, a normally good Miami team, maybe. But I just feel the way the committee looks at it, I just don't think they have a lot of faith in that ACC conference to build back. So I do think any one loss is going to come from Oklahoma and then whatever the SEC produces.
Well, I mentioned Penn State because, if you look at the rankings right now, with Clemson having a potential to lose, Notre Dame could slip up. West Virginia, we know how that Big 12 is. Anybody could win games in that division. Now, Washington is sitting in front of them. We both picked Oregon to win and beat Washington. So that they already moving up to number 7. Georgia, could they slip up? Probably not. I got them as, obviously the second best team. But I think any of these teams from 3 to 6 could lose. Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, and West Virginia. And now look who's in the top 4. And if they take care of business against Michigan and they take care of business against Wisconsin, I think that'll be enough to keep them there.
One thing I think.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. One thing I was going to say that I think the committee does, and whether it's on purpose or not, remember that the committees, when the rankings come out on October 30th, they don't have to follow the AP or the coaches poll. They could do whatever. And even though I'm not a Louisville fan in any way, shape, or form, the year they had Lamar Jackson was undefeated, I think there was something purposeful to having them always outside looking in. And I think that'll be Penn State. I think no matter what happens, 1 through 8, Penn State will always find themselves looking out of the top 4. And I think the committee does it because either A, you're going to prove yourself against the quote-unquote doubters, or you're going to get discouraged and lose, and that takes care of it for them. So I think the committee likes to do little things like that. They like to even though they're not supposed to, they like to send messages. And they're going to send a message to Penn State and say, hey, you didn't beat Ohio State. So sit here at 6 all the way to December, and the chances are that Penn State's either A, going to say, hey, we're going to show you and we're going to win, or they're going to get so discouraged and they're going to lose to a team like Iowa that they shouldn't. And the NCAA, the committee's like, we don't have to worry about it now.
I agree with that.
All right, guys. So let's go on and move on to the final topic of today's show. Good old Thursday night football. You got Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Football Giants. Billy, who do you got on this one?
I got the Giants. They need this. They've been close. They've been decent. Despite what Odell has said, I don't think he really said anything bad. But Eli really hasn't played that bad. He just hasn't taken many shots, and I guess that's it. That is what Odell alluded to. He say that the underneath stuff is cool, but he want to run some post routes. But I got the G-man on this one. Barkley has been decent. He's been a little bit better than what I thought he will be. Odell has been Odell. He just hasn't gotten in the end zone, and that's what he's talking about. Wentz has played pretty good. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception since he came back. But it's just something about his play. It just doesn't look the same to me. Jay, he's gone for the year. Dan Sproles out for tonight. How will Smallwood look carrying the load? What will Wentz now have to do since they don't have a running game? I think on the road on a short week, Wentz is still working his way back into the fold with that knee. I think the Giants take advantage tonight playing at home.
So let me translate to the fans out there. When Billy says the Giants need this, he means he needs this because he picked the Giants. And a division win is going to be huge for him. Now, a lot of the numbers you got to throw out the window because this is an NFC division game. And I would never, even if I was the world's worst gambling addict and I was horrible at it, I would keep my wallet and clothes and walk past any booth anytime it was an NFC East game. I just don't know who to trust. And in this one, you have a tale of two teams coming at each other in different momentums. You have a Giants team that really started pretty rocky. Their offensive line looks a little better. Eli's looking to be a little bit more comfortable. Barkley's making bigger plays. They're finally getting Beckham involved. They're getting some of these other receivers involved. I don't know when or if Ingram's back, but that's going to be something that's going to be included in the mix. You have the Eagles, lost 2 in a row. They keep losing players. Are they losing that momentum? We ask every week. We talk on this show. Is it time to panic? When is this? I keep saying no, and I'm going to say no one more week because I don't trust the Giants right now on primetime. I still don't trust that line enough to stop Fletcher Cox, Bennett, and Chris Long, and some of the guys that they're going to have coming at him. I do think Wentz is going to find enough ways to score some points. So I think the Eagles win 24-17.
So Matthew,
and a tight one I see.
Sorry, Billy. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and ask your question, Mike.
So, Matthew, do you have more faith in a 4-loss Philly team or a 5-loss Giants team to make a push towards the division championship?
I have more faith in a 6-loss Eagles team than I do a 3-loss Giants team. And I say this as a Patriots fan, the only time I trust the Giants is if they're happen to be in the Super Bowl versus the Patriots. I'm going to not trust them every other game up until that point. And I don't think they've had the same pass rush and the same aggressiveness on defense that they had that time. Those 2 years, 7 and 12. So, yes, I've always – maybe I'm a hater. I don't have a reason to. I like Eli. I like Barkley. I like Beckham. I just can't trust them. Just like the Cowboys, I can't trust them except the Giants. The only time I would trust them if it's the Giants-Patriots Super Bowl.
Billy, you got some thoughts on that?
I agree, man. The Giants, but I did pick them. This team. I'm just going to say this: at the beginning of the year, this team had so much potential. You had Eli, who I thought was going to come out and play better than what he is, although he's not playing bad. I really was never really high on the Saquon thing. They went and got a left tackle, Will Hernandez from UTEP University, out here where I'm at. That kid is massive. And then they had Beckham coming back. They got Sterling Shepard. They got Ingram. This team had so much, and we know what they can do on defense with Snacks and Landon Collins, anchoring that defense. Eli Apple has played okay this year, better than before. This team had potential to win this East with Carson Wentz starting out, not starting, and Redskins with a new quarterback, Cowboys with Dak Prescott, who I think is holding them back. They had a chance to run away with this division, and I just don't know what happened.
All righty, guys. So you guys are both picking the Giants, correct? Did I understand that correctly?
No, I'm picking the Eagles.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm picking the Giants.
All right. So finally,
I got to keep my NFC East pick, man.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be wrong again because the Cowboys are going to win it. So in the end,
oh my God,
probably the best team in the state.
All right, guys. As always, thank you guys for joining us. We'll be live again on Sunday morning at 9:45 a.m. We'll have Billy from Unpopular Opinion as always. Billy, where can people find your podcast at?
On Spreaker, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm not on this week. I will be back on next week. Stay tuned to the Unpopular Opinion Facebook and Twitter page at Unpopular 2018 to get news on when I'm going live. I may throw in a guest appearance sometime this weekend. Who knows?
And Matthew Lyle, when does Cross Sports Network come back on? Do we lose him?
I think we lost him.
All right, well, guys, we'll see you guys Sunday morning, 9:45. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel below. If you're listening to us on Spotify, iTunes, or Google Podcasts, be sure to go ahead and follow the podcast as well and give us a ranking as well so we can get this show growing, picking up the momentum that we once had. But as always, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll catch you on Sunday.